Welcome back, Mr. Goodberry. The First Star Logistics studio is fully equipped and ready to record.
Welcome back to Bengals on the Brain, presented by First Star Logistics. I'm your host, Joe Goodberry, and the season is approaching and the clock is ticking and pressure is mounting for the Bengals to sign and extend Ja'Marr Chase or, not. I guess that's always an option, but we'll go over that a little bit. I guess it's time to talk about that, although we dipped into it a little bit a couple episodes ago when the report was that he wanted about $40 million a year. Things have happened since then. The final 53, or the initial 53, has been announced and massaged over the last couple of days, and they have made some moves. We're going to go over that and talk about some of the new players they have and what I think the depth chart looks like right now. I think we'll get an official depth chart next week, just before week 1. But even that is never enough for me. That doesn't explain and show everything that I think needs to be shown on a depth chart. And so I've got my own. If you got our player evaluation book last training camp, I still continue to grade all these players, and I've continued to grade them and up into the guy they claimed this year, who we still have to watch film on and see how we can help the Bengals in week 1. That's KJ Henry, former Clemson defensive end, the opposite end of Myles Murphy, who was drafted by the Commanders. They released him. He's going to fit. Actually, he's a very good fit. You're not always lucky on the waiver wire for getting a guy you need that's specific to your needs. And in this case, they needed a left defensive end. They've been playing Myles Murphy there ever since Cam Sample went down. And then when he was available, they picked him up because when Murphy and Henry were together at Clemson, we talked about this when Murphy was drafted, but Murphy was basically straight up a right defensive end. And the left defensive end only played left defensive end, and that was Henry. So this fits pretty well from that perspective. He's young. He still has 3 years left on his first his rookie contract, which Cam Sample's going into the final year. He's got a little bit more pass rush upside than Cam Sample had, and he showed well as a rookie. So we'll go over that just a little bit when we go over the depth chart. But I think KJ Henry's going to be able to fill that role. The Bengals' first days of practice, though, it was Joseph Osai playing the backup left defensive end, while Cedric Johnson was playing the backup right defensive end. So now we'll have to see how quickly KJ Henry can get into that fold and start to play, and will he be active early, as the Bengals have put Myles Murphy, McKinley Jackson, and Brad Robbins on the IR list. The two of them, though, Brad Robbins and Myles Murphy, on the IR to return right away to get to the 53. Now, the 53, you can have 8 players returned from injured reserve throughout the year, but a maximum of 2 can go on it on the day you get to your 53-man roster. And this is a different rule than what has been in the past, where you had to wait a day and then put those guys on IR. So you had to subject some players that you wanted to waivers, and now you don't have to do that. But you can only do 2, which the Bengals chose to do with Brad Robbins and Myles Murphy. So you're not going to have Murphy for the first 4 games, not weeks, games. Brad Robbins, also Ryan Rico, as of now, is the punter. He's got 4 weeks to show what he can do before Robbins gets back and maybe potentially takes over that spot. And then the Bengals put McKinley Jackson on IR after 1 day, doing some juggling with Travion Williams, putting him on the practice squad for a day, and then back up to the active roster. That's how you have to juggle it sometimes. And from there, let's look at this depth chart first, and then we're going to go into Ja'Marr Chase, what the situation is. It's the big news. It's the big topic this week. Let's do the fun stuff. Let's do the player evaluation. Let's do the grading first with this roster, and then we'll come back around and we'll talk about Ja'Marr Chase, the Bengals, and the ticking clock as we approach the kickoff to 2024. Okay, first thing to catch up on from this week's news with the Bengals is placing, obviously I said, placing Myles Murphy and Brad Robbins on IR, and DJ Ivey, last year's 7th round pick that performed well but hurt his knee late in the year. He remains on the physically unable to perform list. I think that gives them I remember correctly, I should look this up. I think it gives him 6 to 8 weeks to decide if he can get active to this roster. And if you activate him, I believe you still have 4 weeks after that. So it gives you about 12 weeks to decide completely if you want to activate him or keep him on IR for the rest of the year. They released Jalen Davis, which was one of the surprise releases, I think. I think he was one of the final guys to be cut on this roster, meaning, yeah, you're not one of the top 53, but maybe you're 54, 55, 56. And I think Jalen Davis is definitely, yeah, that's how you should say it. But he's clearly in that few players there at the final cuts. Logan Woodside is the third quarterback. They waived Travis Bell, Nate Brooks, Cole Burgess, Devin Cochran, Elijah Collins, Carlos Davis, Dominique Davis, Nate Gilliam, who I thought was a surprise, Cam Grandy, Devin Harper, Shaka Hayward, Trey Hill, Shedrick Jackson, PJ Jules, Kendrick Pryor, and Lance Robinson, who was waived injured. Now, I already said, so the next day they get KJ Henry on waivers from Washington. They terminated the contract of Travion Williams and put him on the practice squad. This was just juggling. I already talked about that. Lance Robinson cleared waivers, so he reverted to the IR list and will essentially remain on the team. One way to make the roster as a rookie and an undrafted guy is to go on injured reserve for the full year and come back next year and give yourself another chance as you're still under contract. Also on the practice squad. So 12 players to the practice squad. Nate Brooks at corner. Some people question why not Alan George. It seemed when they released Alan George with that first wave, they thought he was one of the first guys to be cut and not worthy of the practice squad. So I think that shook out here. So Nate Brooks is one of the corners. Cole Burgess, Devin Cochran, Dominique Davis at defensive tackle. And I like Devin Cochran. I thought he played well enough this year to make this. Jalen Davis onto the practice squad was not claimed. That's good to see. Cam Grandy at tight end. I think he's their backup wide tight end and could eventually make this roster maybe a year down the line or so. Shaka Hayward at linebacker. Trey Hill still here, still on the roster technically. Shedrick Jackson, PJ Jules, Kendrick Pryor, and Logan Woodside. The one guy that I was surprised here was that they didn't find a way to keep the linebacker they claimed last year, Devin Harper, who was good on special teams, instead opting for Shaka Hayward. I thought maybe both, and we didn't get that. But with 4 open spots on the practice squad, who else could they get? That happens on the 29th, where they re-signed Travion Williams to the active roster, placed McKinley Jackson on IR. And it's guard Tashawn Manning, who was from Kentucky, went to Baltimore and has never played in the regular season. He was a 2023 prospect. But the last 2 preseasons playing left guard and right guard has played really well and is graded really, really well, according to PFF. He is a pass blocker with some nastiness to him. Big dude that looks like he should develop into a run blocker as well. He's a good prospect, especially for the practice squad. Kendall Milton, you may remember, he signed with the Eagles, undrafted, from Georgia, 6'1", 220, one of the few power backs that we talked about in the draft process, one of the few that could pass protect as well. He had a good preseason. Well, he's 3.3 per carry, but he was good in the pass game, had 5 pass blocking reps, did not give up pressure, so that's good to see. Defensive tackle Justin Rogers from Dallas, out of Auburn, undrafted or 7th round pick. Rogers played really well, but Dallas has an issue, and you see this sometimes where you draft a guy very highly, like Mozzie Smith last year. He's got to make the roster over a guy like Justin Rogers, even though it sounds like Rogers outplayed a lot of their nose tackles or defensive tackles. He's a nose tackle type in the preseason. And he's a guy that's got naturally gifted power, and he's still on the young side. That's a fine undrafted, or I should say practice squad pickup to add to this roster and see if he can develop. And then Isaiah Thomas, who you may remember of beating Jonah Williams for his only sack. He comes from the Browns. Practice squad, again, in their mold of the bigger, longer, stouter defensive ends. And I think, he doesn't have a direct path, but when you are hurting at defensive end, how many times do we talk about they need to get a D tackle, they need to get a running back, they need to get a guard, they need to get another defensive end in here? Well, these 4 guys were guys they probably liked last year and this year in the draft process that they didn't end up getting as an undrafted player. Excuse me while I stutter a little bit. And because they weren't able to get those guys, they kept their eyes on them. Very common in the football world to retain that grade you had on them from their draft class. And so these are the 4 players that are added to this practice squad, and we'll see if any of them get called up, but they're fair prospects to add and see what happens. Now let's look at the depth chart, or at least how I see it. Okay, so here's the depth chart, and it's almost like a top-down view. It's not how the Bengals like to list it in vertical fashion. Quarterbacks right here, obviously. So Joe Burrow, one of the highest graded players on the team, obviously, 83.6. Jake Browning, big jump. If you have the guide from last year, I believe he was like a 66. He's at a 70.2 now, which is very respectable for Jake Browning. Zach Moss, Chase Brown, Travion Williams, only 3 running backs for the Bengals on this roster. Are they good enough? I have high hopes for Chase Brown. I think Zach Moss is a solid, quality player. Travion Williams is your run-of-the-mill third, fourth string type running back, bottom end, third string, high end, fourth string. And now we have to see if Kendall Milton can crack this. He's the 4th guy. I don't have him graded yet. I don't have practice squad guys on here. That's more of a off-season thing. I think eventually get to that. But yeah, not much to write home about with the running backs. I think we're all waiting to see how good is Zach Moss. Can he stay healthy? And Chase Brown. And how good is he? What's the upside? When are we going to see it? Will we see Chase Brown's upside? A lot of people in fantasy are banking on that right there. Left tackle, Orlando Brown, still grades really high for me. I still think he's good. He had a down year last year, but the parts of him were still the same. I think we get a bounce back year this year. I've got Trent Brown listed as a backup because let's say Orlando Brown goes down. Who would you put over there? Would it just be Cody Ford, or would you say, hey, Trent Brown, kick over there and play left tackle, and we'll put Amarius Mims over at the right tackle spot? I think that makes more sense. Trent Brown's played just as much left tackle as he has right. But if you get into a pinch, I still think it would be Cody Ford that jumped in there. Moving over to the right tackle spot over here on the right side, Trent Brown is a 78.5. Good player. One of their best offensive linemen. He and Orlando Brown should be their 2 best offensive linemen, unless Amarius Mims is just that damn good as a rookie, and there's a chance he is. I've got Jackson Kirkland listed here. He still grades pretty poorly, even though I thought he had a much better camp and could be better than Cody Ford. I think it's close. I mean, a 66 versus almost a 64, 67 versus 64 if you round up a little bit. That's not too far off the way it looks. And Cody Ford could play right tackle before Kirkland does. I could see Kirkland being inactive. I want to see week 1. Who's active? Is it Jackson Kirkland? Is it Cody Ford? We'll have to see. Both have guard versatility as well, as we can see inside here as well. Alex Kappa, 76.2. Although I wouldn't be surprised we get to the end of the year and he is graded lower than Ted Karras and Cordell Bolson. I think over the course of their careers, Kappa has been better. But I think we're starting to see it slipping just a little bit. Those lower body injuries are making him a little bit stiffer. He's not getting as low as he used to. He's not as quick out of his stance as he used to be. We see Alex Kappa slip down just a bit here. Ted Karras, solid player, on the verge of being a good player. What I think 75 plus is typically a good player. He's been knocking on that door for a couple years now. Matt Lee, a 71 as a rookie. He was high for us to begin with. If you remember during draft season, we had him in the 4th round range, maybe 3rd round even in some drafts when we did. We never expected him to go that high, but he just graded that high for us. 71 here is pretty strong, and it's very strong for a 7th rounder. It's pretty strong for a rookie. Cordell Bolson, I actually think he may have taken a small step forward, guys, and I'm not expecting him to be amazing, but at the very least, if he's a 73 to a 74 type player, we will take that. First guard off the bench, I'm not sure who it'll be, so something to watch if that happens. Moving over to the outside X receiver here real quick. Jamar Chase, 85.9. He's got the highest grade of any player on this team, and it's higher than Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's had injuries. Jamar Chase, while he's had injuries too, he quickly bounced back and was very good right away. He still has some upside in him. I think he's become a better player every year in his career. And if we could ever get he and Burrow healthy together for a full 17 games, man, that'd be awesome. Hopefully that's this year. And Jermaine Burton behind as a 74.7. Andre Yosivash. I don't know who actually would fill in first out of Burton and Yoshi. I could see Burton not being active, and that means Yoshi jumps in next. It could be Trenton Irwin as well. I got Trenton Irwin listed in the slot, but Trenton Irwin does back up every other position. Let me get to all the way to the other side here, and you'll see what I mean. T. Higgins, 81.5. Good grade for T. Higgins. He is a good player. I think he's good. He's not 83, 8 to 85, rare range, but I think he is a player I would be still trying to keep, and we've talked about that plenty. I got Andre Osivach listed as the top slot guy. Trenton Irwin behind him. I think Irwin's better than this. For him to come out at 69.4, the hard part for me when grading him, and I'm not going to pull up his sheet at wide receiver right now. It probably looks very similar if you have the book. What is his dominant trait, right? He doesn't really have one. He is good in a lot of ways. He's faster than you think. He's more athletic than you think. He's better at the catch point than you think. I think he's a good route runner. That's probably his best attribute. But it doesn't carry his grade if he is just average at everything. But yet the guy just makes plays, continues to make plays. He's better than the 69, but I just struggle to get him even higher than that. Charlie Jones at a 70.2. Still hopeful that he's going to have a bounce back, but you know what? He gets a boost in his grade because of his special teams ability and makes him more valuable. We're going to kick into the defensive interior first. BJ Hill, 76.5. He is a good player. Sheldon Rankin, 76.7, a comparable player. They're not too different. I think Hill may be better against the run. I think Sheldon Rankin's a little bit better pass rusher. I think we could see a career year out of BJ Hill, though. He's flashed a bunch in camp, getting me excited. J2 Fele made the roster. And that 69 is fair, but when I see that, I look at the depth chart and look at the way he's been used so far, and I think he may be our nose tackle early in the season. McKinley Jackson, when he gets back from IR, presumes to take over that role, but we'll see if it happens. But a solid 70 grade as a rookie. Zach Carter, 67, one of the lower guys that's going to rotate in here for sure, if not the lowest rotational piece on this defense. Chris Jenkins is a 74.1. He should be good against the run very early in his career with just maybe a hope that he's a better pass rusher than we know. That's been moved from preseason. Still lingers here. Trey Hendrickson, their best defensive player, 81.3. Perennial Pro Bowler at this point. Good player. Joseph Osai backing him up at a 71.9. Cedric Johnson at a 68.8, which is more in line with a 7th round pick than Matt Lee at 71. So if you want to know, the difference there. I haven't scored KJ Henry yet. Plan on doing that. That might even be an episode. He's on the active roster. We're going to have to get familiar with that, man. Sam Hubbard, 75.8, but starting to slip a bit with the injuries mounting up. Production maybe falling off. It's hard to say when a guy's been hurt. We'll see if he's healthy this year, even though he's been hurt in camp as well. Osai, currently the backup. Miles Murphy, 74.7, has slipped a little bit. I want to say a 71 and some change, or 75 and some change. As a rookie, he only went down a little because he is hurt and currently, so that affects his grade. And he didn't show that he took a step in preseason. So maybe that's unfair in the little bit of time we got to see him, but that's how I felt. Cam Taylor-Britt, their highest rated corner at a 77.2. DJ Turner behind him because DJ Turner is going to back up every position. 74.3, very respectable. Not just respectable, that's good if he's your 4th corner. Josh Newton at a 70.1. Pretty good for him as well. In the slot, I've got Mike Hilton with a 76.8. That's a very good grade, especially for a slot guy. It's hard to be an elite slot guy like he is, and his grade's not in the 80s. I think 77, 76 is as good as you're probably going to get for a guy that isn't big, isn't fast, right? Doesn't have great ball skills. He's just good at everything else. Josh Newton, DJ Turner. I got Newton as the primary backup at that spot. Dax Hill with a 75.9. Listen, he was a 76 at safety, I want to say it was. Moving him to corner didn't really hurt him because his size advantage probably helped his grade a little bit. I took his technical aspect down, how advanced he is in the technique of playing corner. But I think he's probably a really good zone corner. And I would like to see what he looks like in man. Hopefully we get a lot of, hopefully we don't get a lot of tape on that during the regular season. Like that's what I wanted to see in preseason. We didn't get a lot. He looked good and flashed in the moments he did, but what a good backup you have with DJ Turner. I think they're all going to play. Let's look at the 2 linebackers right here, starting with Logan Wilson, 77.9. I think he's the 2nd highest graded defender behind Hendrickson, 81.3. Yes, he is. He and Jermaine Pratt are the number 2 defenders, 2 and 3 defenders on this team. So front seven players, Jermaine Pratt, 77.8, Keem Davis Gaither, very respectable, 72.3. I think he can play and can start for you if needed. Joe Bacci, John Meta, both 67s. They're both probably special teamers. We'll see if John Meta can develop into any more than that. But remember, he was an undrafted guy. So was Joe Bacci. So 67 is respectable. We're verging on 68 for John Meta. If he becomes a better pass cover linebacker, if he's playing, there's probably an issue. Even though he may be their better run defender right now of the linebacker unit, he's probably the worst pass protecting linebacker. And that means more. That's more valuable in today's game. All right, going to the safeties. Geno Stone. I got Jordan Battle backing up both spots. Jordan Battle backing up both spots. That's a tongue twister. Von Bell at the other side, 74.9, just under the 75, very good or good mark, which Geno Stone hits. Tyson Anderson, 69.7, only down because of the injuries. I think he's a good player. And then Dejon Anthony, again, typical, hovering around a 70 for a good day 3 pick. He and Josh Newton both hit that. Josh Newton, 70.1, so exactly the same. I didn't know that came out that way. I think both guys are going to have a role on this defense and will be active on game days, which for day 3 picks, Bengals have really desperately needed this for a long time. The only other position I did not talk about was tight end. And I've said I've liked this tight end group. Here they are right here. Mike Gesicki at a very respectable 74.9. Not a good player, but a solid player that creates mismatches and has his attributes that he can hang his head on and he can win with. Drew Sample at a 69.5. Good blocker, but really nothing else other than that. Eric All, verging on a 70. The injuries, so, as he proves to be healthy and durable, which he has lately, that grade will go up automatically. But I like what I've seen from Eric All. I think he's the third tight end. Tanner Hudson, Tanner McLaughlin, the two Tanners behind in the 69 range. Again, Hudson's more of a one-way player. McLaughlin can go two-way, but I don't know how athletic he actually is, and he's an older prospect as well. We'll see if a number 2 guy can really step up. My money is on Eric All, but that's how the roster looks. Looking at it from a grade perspective, the tight end group is not as strong as I thought. As I thought, I know these grades. What I mean is I was saying earlier, I like the tight end room. I do, but are they good? Well, objectively, no. Running back, I like the running back group because I think Chase Brown's going to have a big year. But objectively, is it a strong group? I wouldn't say it is. And then the third receiver unit, I like the backups. I like Burton, Yoshi, Trent Irwin, Charlie Jones. I really do. Objectively, are they good? Are they proven? You can't say they are right now. And that's fair, right? It is what it is. One of them will probably step up. You roll the dice on 3 draft picks, Burton, Charlie Jones, and Yoshi, the chances one of them are going to hit is pretty high. So I've got no issue there. At the very least, the other 2 can be depth players, and you'll figure it out from there. But overall, the safety group is deep. I like them. I think you're good at linebacker. The defensive tackle room. If Zach Carter is playing a big role and Jay Tufele is playing a big role, that is the scary part. And that's where you get to man, it's not good enough. We'll see how defensive end looks. I think Osai is primed for a big year, but I've said that so many times, I can't say it anymore because they're going to, at that point, you just look crazy. If you go 4 years in a row of Osai, he's going to help this team, and 4 years in a row, he's had moments, but it is what it is. Okay, so that's how I see the roster. Let me know what you think. If I'm too high, too low, any of these guys. I already, in my own system, I'm yeah, I think he should be higher. I think this guy should be lower, but I trust the system. It's worked for a long time. I've used it for a long time, even though I tweak it every year. And that's what we're looking at for the Bengals roster. Let's move on. And to wrap the show, let's pivot to the Ja'Marr Chase conversation. He practiced for 2 days. And then Zach Taylor said, I expect him to continue practicing. I expect that he'll be there week 1 and ready to go. And everyone was excited. Oh, it's over. We don't have to worry about it anymore. Ja'Marr Chase didn't practice the next 2 days and showed up a little bit late and walked right in front of reporters, kind of as if, I'm here. Don't worry. I know you're all worried about me. I know you're talking about me. And I think it's funny watching the comments and reading the comments of Bengals fans. I think people are rubbed the wrong way by the way Chase is handling this, whether that's he has 2 years left on his deal or honor the contract you play, or get out there and practice. The clock's ticking. We're at the end now. The season's here. All things are true. They're true statements. And if those are your opinions, that's fine. But at the same time, he is addressing and taking advantage of the situation where he is now one of the few very good receivers to not be extended. Charlie Goldsmith had this on Twitter too, where he posted, going back to 2020, T. Higgins draft class. All the good receivers have been extended except for T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. And I know, like, there's still 2 years left on Chase, but that's kind of weird. And as a Bengals fan, that stinks that this team hasn't been able to come to an agreement with either receiver. And there's still time. Like, Chase isn't going anywhere. He's got this year, he's got next year, and he would have the tag. And we still all believe the Bengals will extend Jamar Chase at some point anyway. But if we're talking about right now, because clearly Jamar wants a contract right now. Clearly he wants to be paid. He wants the security, and he wants to be paid like the rest of his draft class has now been paid. Whether that's Nico Collins and Amon-Ra St. Brown, whether that's Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, Brandon Ayuk just gets paid $30 million a year. That's the floor. That he would never take that. CeeDee Lamb gets paid $34 million a year. Justin Jefferson, his friend, gets $35 million a year. That's the ceiling then. Because there's not going to be a better receiver coming up anytime soon, whether that's this year, next year, the year after, than Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson. That's 3 of the top 5 players at the position. Tyreek Hill also got an extension this offseason, the other top receiver. And his average is pretty significant. The average cap hit per year, I'm saying. So Jamar's looking at this and saying, why shouldn't I get paid then? All of these other guys have gotten paid. I know normally they don't after 3 years, but in his strong receiver draft class, there's been a bunch of guys that have been paid. Now, yes, he will be paid more than all of them, but it's because he deserves it. We want Jamar to be on this team, right? For the next 6+ years, for 10 years total? Yeah, of course we do. And I think the team does as well. Of course the team does. Mike Brown has said it. So if Chase wants a contract, what does he want? Right? We talked about the 4 years, 160 million with 120 million guaranteed, I think it was. All would be surpassing of Justin Jefferson's deal. And Chase believes he's better than Jefferson. Why wouldn't he believe that? Number one, he's a receiver. All receivers believe they're the best in the world. But number two, all he has known is being better than Jefferson. They played together, and Chase was the number one as a younger player. He was drafted higher. If he was in that offense, you don't think he'd get funneled the ball and produce the same way? It's a different offense. There's more weapons in Cincinnati, especially lately. Better quarterback, of course. It is what it is. Jefferson, I think, is the best receiver in the league, but that doesn't mean that Jamar is any worse than that. But at the same time, does that mean he deserves $36 million? Is that what we're going to come to? All right, fine, you get $1 million more than Jefferson? Or are there other ways to win? If it is just a friendly rivalry and he wants that $1 more than Jefferson, Lamb didn't get that, but Lamb got the highest signing bonus of any receiver. So now does Chase want a higher signing bonus than that? To say at least, when Jefferson and him get together, he's like, yeah, well, I got the higher 35 per year. And Chase goes, well, I got the higher signing bonus. These are things that are valuable. You want to win these contracts. These are the most competitive players in the NFL, in football, I should have said. That's how they make it to the NFL. You don't think they want to win contracts? Of course they do. And it helps the Bengals to do it early. I've said that so many times now that I hope you understand and believe that if you do it early now, not only does the price potentially go up as these players in 2 years and 3 years that are looking for contracts. Now, I said there's not a receiver coming up in the immediate year or two, but in 3 years, Chase will be signed for 6 years. In 3 years, when someone surpasses Justin Jefferson in 4 years when someone passes Justin Jefferson. You want to be in that range so that you don't feel like you're completely underpaid. When Travis Hunter is signed in 4 years, right? Or whoever it may be. But you get the point there. You want to still be competitive in that. So the ceiling is set. At least the target range is set at 35 million. The floor is set. Ayuk at 30. We're not going that low, right? Why would we even offer that to Chase? He's worth more than that. 34 at CeeDee Lamb per year. So we're in the 34 to 35, 36. This seems like it should get done. That seems easy. We've got so many receiver contracts. We know what the signing bonus looks like. We know what the guaranteed structure looks like. We know what the average per year looks like. This should get done. The only reason it doesn't get done is if the Bengals are continuing to struggle to pay that position what they're now being valued at. The receiver position is getting paid way more than corners. Way more. And there's more receivers getting paid top dollar than there are corners. So are the Bengals struggling with that? Are they struggling to pay T. Higgins 25 and Chase 35? If they didn't not pay Jesse Bates and not pay T. Higgins so they could pay Jamar Chase, and I know fans have said that. Well, they didn't pay these guys. Now it's time to pay Chase. No, that's not. They struggled to meet the guaranteed demands of those two guys. And potentially the average per year based on some reports for Higgins. I don't know if I buy it or not. I think the Bengals made a fair offer, but the guarantee structure for that agent definitely, can't say definitely, probably is the issue. Is that still the issue with Chase? She's a franchise player. He could go down as the best receiver to ever play, and you guys have had a ton of them. We did the list this summer. So if it benefits the team to get done early, and Chase wants to do it early because he wants the security and he wants the money right now and up front, then this should get done, especially with the recent receiver contracts. I think it gets done, and that's exciting. The clock's ticking, though. And the Bengals are notorious for being slow negotiators. They'll let you sit on it for 48 hours. And maybe that's what happened. Maybe they were talking, and they're like, we'd like to see you practice before we give you this contract. And so he goes and practices. And then they give him so Chase is at 40 and the Bengals are at 30. And Chase practices and the Bengals go to 32. Chase is like, really? I'm not practicing for 32. Bump it up. You know what I want. Come on. Stop messing with me. So he goes out practicing again. And the Bengals could call his bluff. If Chase is like, I'll sit out. I'll miss games. Or I won't be there until you pay me. I'm not going to risk my body for no guaranteed money. So the Bengals, do they come up a little bit more? Do they go 33, 34? Or they just cut the crap and give a $35.5 million per year offer with more guaranteed money or a bigger signing bonus, whatever it will take to get the deal done and get them in there before the clock strikes midnight on a Super Bowl window year where everyone thinks you've got a chance to do it. And one of your best players isn't part of the offense. That offense better not struggle. Right? Your best player, your best weapon hasn't been there. I assume he'll get on track pretty quickly in the chemistry he and Burrow have created over a long time now. Should still be there. But I do think they might be calling each other's bluff because Chase would lose money. He'd lose a game check. He'd get fined. He'd have to pay back a portion of his signing bonus or roster bonus, I'm sorry, if he misses actual games. Would he do that? I don't think he would. But do you want to push it that far? Do you want your disgruntled franchise player? Do you want two disgruntled receivers? I know Higgins has showed up and did everything this offseason, but he wants a deal still too. Trey Hendrickson still wants a deal. Can you have all of these contract issues and still field the team to win the Super Bowl? I'd rather just get it done. We want him here. He wants to be here. The team wants him here. Find the dollar amount. Find the common ground. And maybe by the time this show is even posted on Friday, it will be done. That'd be awesome. How about a Friday? How about a Thursday during the Chiefs opener again? Remember, that's when Joe Burrow's contract was announced. So we've got time still, but the clock is at 11:30. We got a stalemate, maybe, potentially. We don't know. Maybe they're negotiating. Maybe it's all happy, and he's just not getting on the field till he gets that deal. Until next time, Bengals on the Brain, presented by First Star Logistics. We're there. The season's here. We just need one more thing to happen. Come on, Chase. Come on, Bengals. Till next time. Hooday.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.